Actually, the story of Anthem is not unique. Think of Knockout City, Rumbleverse, Lawbreakers, the list goes on. But the game that really lit the fuse for the current movement was Ubisoft's The Crew. When they shut the game down in March of 2024, they made a game that people had to pay for, that had a huge open world and a full single multiplayer campaign completely unplayable. That was the line in the sand for many. This led to the creation of the Stop Killing Games initiative, spearheaded by YouTuber Ross Scott and supported by gamers across the continent. They didn't just complain on forums. They took organized and legal action. They started a petition on the official European Union petitions website, and the response was overwhelming. As of the recording of this, late July 2025, the petition has been formally accepted by the US Parliament Committee on Petitions. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. This means that the issues of digital ownership and game shutdown is now on the official agenda for the European Union policymakers. It's a legitimate political issue. So why they are asking for? What does succeed for this movement even look like? The proposals are multifaceted. The first and most straightforward is an amendment for offline patches. If a game has a single-player content, the publisher should be required to release a patch to remove the online-only check-in before they shut down the server for good. This is common sense. It lets you keep the product you pay for even if the multiplayer component is gone. The second proposal is a more radical and targeted at online-only games like Anthem. It suggests that if a publisher is going to terminate a service, they should be required to release the server code, either as an open source for the public or to a designated community group. This will allow fans to run their own private servers, preserving the game for history and for its dedicated community. And this is not something new. We've seen this happen with all massively multiplayer games like Star Wars Galaxy. But and I think that another example is the original Phantasy Star Online games. So it's always been the legally gray area. This will make a legal right. Imagine community-run Anthem servers, free from Electronic Arts monetization, maybe even with a fan-made content. It's a game preservation stream. The third and perhaps the most likely starting point for regulation is a mandate minimum lifespan. The law could state that any game sold digitally must remain operational for a set period, say 7 years from the date it was last offered for sale. That's more or less the average life of each gaming generation. This will prevent the rug pull of a game being shut down just in 2 or 3 years after launch. It forces publishers to commit to their product. Naturally, the industry's lobby group will fight this. They will talk about the immense cost of service maintenance, security, and staffing. They argue that forcing them to support all games will stifle innovation by tying up the resources that could go to a new project. This is a typical PR BS from many companies that is all about profit first and the art of making games next. But the counter argument is simple and powerful. We bought it. We bought a product and you're taking away it from us. The fundamental conflict here is between the traditional concept of ownership and the new reality of a license to access. This movement argues that consumer protection laws are even caught up with this new reality, and it's time that they did. So what's next in the European Union process? Now that the petition is with the committee, the next stage will likely involve hearings. This is where the real debate happens. Representatives from the Stop Killing Games movement, consumer rights organization, and gaming trade bodies will all be invited to give testimony and make their case. Just last week, the committee chair released a preliminary statement acknowledging the significant public interest in these matters. The pressure is on. This isn't some niche issue anymore. And if a law is passed in the European Union, the shockwave will be global. This is known as the Brussels effect. is often cheaper and easier for massive global companies like Electronic Arts, Sony, and Microsoft to adopt a single strict policy worldwide that to maintain different versions of the game and service from different regions. We saw it with the GDPR for data privacy. We could see it again for game preservation. The fight happening in Brussels today to decide whether or not you get to play the game you buy for a decade from now, no matter where you live. This is no longer just about Anthem. It's about every game you buy that requires a server to function. It's a fight for the future for our hobby and our rights as consumer. And no, shouldn't be just limited on live services game because that is the new excuse now. No, the game is a live service. That is why you need to be online all the time. But yes, you have now single player games that for some reason you need to be connected all the time to the internet. And remember all the bad things that Xbox and Microsoft gained when Xbox One was originally announced that it was required to be connected to the internet all the time. Well, unfortunately, the times gave Microsoft a reason, but not in the perfect way or the way that I believe Microsoft would have implemented. I think that the route of going multiplayer live services is just a profit thing that many companies has decided to go with, and this dislike for single player campaign, of course, is not something that companies can make more money off, as different from live services game or multiplayer games. And that is why it's important that this movement like the Stop Killing Games proceed, because we can't have the gaming industry to transform in just a money leeching thing and just devalue the experience for having a single player game. And what I call the replay value can just be like, yeah, a multiplayer, keep grinding on a mission, multiplayer, on and on and on and on, cosmetic, pay this for having an advantage in certain missions. This cannot be the whole future of gaming. It cannot be a unilateral thing about the future of gaming. It's sad that we had to wait for examples like Anthem, Knockout City, Rumble Bros, Lawbreakers, insert all the games that had disappeared in the recent times, including Friday the 13th, and all those great games that were popular ones, and just because it didn't make the money or make the goal for profit, then it goes bye-bye. And honestly, I think it's horrible what Ubisoft said last week also, that gamers are not entitled to what they buy. They buy just a license, and the game, in speaking of when Ubisoft need to shut down the servers of the game, and that includes that the game is completely 100% unplayable, and their update on their terms and conditions says that players are obligated to delete and uninstall the game because that's what's been the normal thing. I think that's a big disconnection from the perspective of gamers and consumer. And I think it doesn't help matters when they try to force that microtransactions are the important thing in the gaming aspect. I think it's disingenuous, and once again, I think that it's really a signal on how disconnected the industry is if we are taking Ubisoft as an example. I think these kind of things you won't be even heard of in the beginning of the 2000s and 90s and the 80s. The inevitable end of Anthem, a game of immersed potential and crushing failure, is baffling. And from its ashes, a movement that seeks to ensure no gaming community to watch its world simply be deleted ever again. It's a complex issue, no doubt, with passionate arguments on all sides, but the first time, it feels like we, the players, have a real seat at the table. We've gone from forum complaint to calls of the government, and that's something that many dreamed I think since the 80s or maybe during the video game crash of the 80s.